Hello, networkers. This is your host Habib Zakaria from IP Network Venture, and my main aim here is to provide as much knowledge as I can on networking engineering. And today's topic is some commonly interviewed questions on OSPF with solutions. These questions are some of the questions I have actually been asked during interviews, and I put them together so anyone who is studying on OSPF and who's preparing for their CCNA, CCMP, or even CCIE can benefit from this content. Some of my courses are on Udemy, and I'll be leaving the link of my complete course on OSPF for for you to benefit from. My courses are usually practical in nature with step-by-step configuration, and I hope my labs are very beneficial to you even if you are in the field. So let's start. The first question that been asked was, what are the different OSPF packet types and their functions? So as we know, OSPF uses 5 packet types: hello, database description, link state request, link state update, and link state acknowledgement. So those are the packet types that OSPF rely on to establish neighbor relationship. The second question is, what is the difference between a designated router and a backup router? Um, Backup designated router, which is BDR. This is probably one of the most famous questions, so please pay attention to this. DR and BDR reduce OSPF overhead in multi-access networks by managing LSAs. DR is the main router, while BDR takes over if DR fails. That's the answer, and it's very simple answer. The designated router, if it fails, BDR takes over. In a multi-access networks, that means if there are like different areas in an OSPF hierarchical design, the main router is usually the DR. And my course covers in-depth information on DR, BDR, and how do the routers get to that election stage where they nominate the DR and then the BDR. What are OSPF areas and why are they used? This is another common question. OSPF areas optimize routing by breaking networks into smaller sections. And those areas are basically the backbone area, stub NSA. So this reduces the SPF computation and LSDB size. Okay. Now in these slides, actually, I'm not gonna go too much technical, and I'm not gonna provide a lot of technical information. The goal of this slide is to just give you the answers quickly, because if you are in an interview, you need to answer them quickly. What are the different LSA types in OSPF? So OSPF has multiple LSA types, such as type 1, which is the router LSA, type 2, which is a network LSA, type 3, which is a summary LSA, and the external LSAs are the external LSAs, and each serving different roles in routing. Okay. How does OSPF calculate the best path? OSPF uses SPF algorithm based on cost, which is determined by interface bandwidth. So cost is equal to 100 per bandwidth in megabits per second. So the default bandwidth that OSPF uses is 100, which it assumes it's basically for a link that is a 100 megabit link. So that is enough to answer, and let's move on. How would you troubleshoot an OSPF neighbor adjacency? So first thing you do if you come across an OSPF neighbor issue is basically you go in and you type show IP OSPF neighbor. Then you have to verify the hello and dead timers. Then ensure the area IDs, ensure matching area IDs, right? And then confirm the network types and check authentication settings. So those are basically the common things you need to check on OSPF configuration, and all that could be given, could you could actually get all that information by just typing show IP OSPF neighbor. The second question is how do you configure OSPF route summarization and why it's important? So the answer is use the area ID and the range with the IP address and the mask for inter-area summarization or summary address, which is basically summary address, summary hyphen address, and the IP address and the mask for external route. It reduces the LSTB size and improves network sufficiency or efficiency. So this is a common way of managing OSPF by going into the router and basically, especially the area border routers, right? Um, so those ones you have to apply the summarization into their configuration so they have less LSDBs going around different areas. What happens if two OSPF routers have different hello and dead intervals? They will not form a neighbor relationship because the hello and dead timers must match for OSPF adjacency. So this is again a common question, right? If everything is good between in the configuration, but the hello and the dead timers are not matching, the OSPF adjacency will not form. Okay. How does OSPF handle equal cost multipath routing? So one of the common things and actually benefits of OSPF routing protocol is ECMP, which is basically allowing multipath with the same cost to be installed in the routing table. This helps to have redundancy and use maximum paths to control the number of ECMP routes. Okay. How can you filter OSPF routes from being advertised? So OSPF can be filtered using three methods. One is distribute list, which filters routes from the routing table. The second one is prefix list, which control routes that are advertised. And the third one is area filtering, by applying stub or NSSA to the areas. When you apply stub, what happens is that it only advertises the default route and not the other routes. So those are the common questions I faced and I answered during my interview, and I hope that these questions will come in handy for someone who's going through the same experience. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you again in my next lectures.